A very good morning once again, and thank you for staying with us right here in Morning at NTV. We are going to be talking about the death traps. Water levels are rising. Bridges are being washed away by floods that even invade hospitals. Roads that until recently were being touted as the best have also been washed away. Buildings are collapsing because the rising water levels have weakened their foundations. Yes, hence causing the collapsing that you've been seeing of late. And for some of these, the President and the Minister of Transport, Katumba Wamala, have blamed corruption. We have put together a panel of experts to help us understand how we can improve our infrastructure, reducing pressure on the existing infrastructure to maintain what we have, hence reducing and ensuring value for money from the ongoing projects. In studio, I do have Engineer Flavia Bwire, the Executive Secretary of the National Building Review Board. Yes, I also have Honorable George Wilson Nsamba Kumama, the Vice Chairperson of Parliament's Physical Infrastructure Committee, a surveyor who is also the MP for Bale County. My reporter Stephen Bide will be speaking to Nathan Byanyima, who is the Chairperson of Initiative Transparency Initiative in Uganda. Right there. So he shall be letting us know what is happening where he is, but I do have Engineer Flavia and Honorable Nsamba. Very good morning, lady and gentlemen. Good morning. But first, let's go to Mbide and get the latest. A very good morning, Mbide. What do you have for us?
Good morning to you, Romeo Busiko. This is Namilembe. I'm here at the home of Honorable Nathan Byanyima. He is the chairperson of COST. COST is Construction Sector Transparency Initiative, and he's going to be giving you much more information about this sector, and especially at this time of COVID-19. How is this sector being affected? How is this sector, at least should them as COST, how are they making sure that they follow up and make sure they get the value for money in the construction sector? Good morning, Mr. Nathan Byanyima.
Morning, Sebo.
How are you today?
Fine.
We are dealing with this situation, COVID-19, but still works are ongoing. We know KCCA is doing road works in Old Tax Park, is doing works on the roads, and as well as UNRA, Uganda National Roads Authority, is also doing much more works. But this is also a situation that we are finding that also the country is battling with the floods in Kasese, in Karamoja, but also there are other challenges. How do you, as COST, how do you, what would you tell the country, especially those who are in positions of authority, to make sure that whatever they are doing is in tandem with the much money they are asking for, especially, for example, KCCA and other agencies like UNRA?
Thank you. Good morning, viewers. That's a good question, really. As our initiative of COST, our initiative is a simple charity, modest organization that would want to move, that has been moving on, to ensure that there is transparency and accountability in the infrastructure projects. Knowing that, of course, that the government spends handsomely, the big chunk of the budget goes to infrastructure, almost like 12% of the budget. So this is the COST. We are really, I'm the chairperson of MSG, which is the multi-stakeholders group that is composed of 9 members, drawn from government and civil society and the private sector, where I personally come from. So our main objective is to push to ensure that value for money is realized by in these projects, especially the public, where government invests a lot of money. So like now, with this COVID, I must begin by thanking the government, entire government, and the scientists, especially Minister of Health, for doing what they have done to this country, save the people's lives. Much as you can talk about money and everything which you are talking about, but we are happy that lives are being saved. And we pray to God that we shall continue to have lives saved.
Mr. Byanyima,
so on this, especially like with this COVID, for us, our call is to ensure that, because now we have floods that you are talking about. And what we are trying to say, we are calling on government, much as there are few people involved in this decision making, because emergencies, people are not everybody there who are supposed to take decisions. Few who are supposed to take decisions, we want them to take decisions, but be aware that we want transparency and accountability in the projects. Because at the end of the day, what we want is value for money. We want to save this country hemorrhage of money that goes into overrun costs, cost overruns, and other shoulder works and what have you. Because at this particular time, people are really in homes, They don't. But things have happened. COVID has come with rain, mores, floods are there. But we must make sure that UNRA, which is overwhelmed by the work, because UNRA has only 23 stations all over the country. So the work is too much. And what we want, we are calling upon government, that much as we have this pandemic, but we should not forget accountability and transparency.
We should not forget accountability, but we know that we're coming to the close of this financial year, and already we know that once again the works sector is going to get lion's share in the next financial year. But still, we know that issues of bureaucratic tendencies, corruption is a big disease in this country, because many people go for procurement and they do backdoor deals. This sector is so crucial. It's getting much more money, but now you say that people should be aware. How should the people where should they be going to know that this is being done? For example, Kampala Express Highway is under construction. You go to Machi India. Yes, you go to Machi India. You go everywhere. Much more work is being done. But how should the citizenry ask for accountability and know that this was supposed to be done like this? Maybe a drainage here. How should they know?
Our viewers is that our main focus as cost. We are calling upon government. We have been with the government by there for some time, now almost 5 years. We are saying all the projects belong to Ugandans. And we want to engage our citizens and get to know what is being done for them. So there is no way we want any project that is taking place now that people don't know. Although they are continuing over even next financial year, because it takes a bit of time. We want our people to get the information, what is being done for them, because at the end of the day, they are the end users of these projects. So you can't build the hospital without telling the local people or even the leaders, the contractor, the scope of work, the duration, how long will the project take, who is the contractor, so that the people can provide an extra eye. Because monitoring is not as easy as possible, as people think. All over the country, there are projects of the roads. You know it. We have opened up roads all over the country. And this is a very, very, very big achievement of government. But the problem is the projects come like as if it's a secret. We want to involve people. We have done some bit of experiment here in Kampala, Sabagabo in Makindi, where there was a road going to, was it Sechitiko Road?
That is Ndeje
Itiko Road. We involved the people, local people. We talked to them. We involved them in barazas. And people accepted to have a road tarmac, but without requiring a compensation.
Talking about the involvement
of just before that, I would want you to know that what we want our main focus is to change from the usual system where things are complicated, the language is because of the engineers. We want to simplify the language and ensure that we feed the people, we tell the people. This project is a road 20 kilometers or 30 kilometers. The scope of work, they're going to remove the maram and put a tarmac. Bitumen. But we want to know, the people should know, who is the contractor, how long will it take, how much is involved, who is the engineer in charge, who is all this information, so that our people can be able to know that this is our project and they own it.
I'll tell you, you may urge the local people to understand all this, but for example, I'll give you an example of what happened in Machi the other day when the building collapsed. You have a site which is under construction, you don't have a site engineer, don't have those landmarks showing us the architect, the engineer, but also you have local leaders in the community, you have KCCA, you have Parliament of Uganda, the infrastructure committee, you have the local government as the district. These things are happening in the community. You have the leaders. What would you tell these local leaders in all the districts across the country, and these members of parliament, and everyone who is concerned? What should their mandate be in making sure that where it's supposed to be a building, it's a building. Where it's supposed to be a road, it's a road, and well gazetted.
You know, I don't want to take you to our history, where we have come from, but we are learning slowly, and we learn by making mistakes. Where we have come from, people used to have I don't care attitude. It's a government project. Even a house, classrooms, also, things are vandalized. But this is a time whereby we know it's now our money, our taxpayers' money. I'm a taxpayer, I must be able to safeguard this and this. But when people are involved now, and you call the barazas, meetings and with the engineer and the contractor, and you tell them, they will get to know. For example, you can't expect the Committee of Parliament to be everywhere. You can't expect even UNRWA itself to monitor everywhere. For example, as we talk now, they don't have pickups for people to do inspection.
But you have means of works, means of
Yes, much
housing.
as we have, what I'm
you
saying
have, yeah.
is what I'm saying.
These
We
guys
must
have
know
teams.
that this is our country. We must own up these projects. What we are calling upon people is that a project that is coming, it's your project. It's a hospital. Like now, we used to have health centers, many of them, but we have been overwhelmed by this COVID. Don't you think we have learned a lesson? We should now move very cautiously to ensure that the government invests heavily in the health centers, in hospitals. So at the end of the day, in case another epidemic comes in, we are prepared.
Talking about lessons learned, I know you're also the chairperson of UBOA, which is United Bus Operators and Drivers Association. Learning, we know buses, taxis are not moving this period of COVID-19, trying to curb this pandemic. What has been the cost on your side as the bus drivers and operators as we are in this situation where we cannot move, we are not hitting the roads? And what would you want to be done in this situation?
Of course, we have rushed so much from infrastructure then to the transport.
Because
when I talk about the
interlinked.
transport, we have about 100 companies of buses that are operating on our roads. And those are the companies. But we have over 1,000 buses that are operating. But as soon as they stopped, that's a lot of money, you know. Complete lost. We no longer earn an income. We have a lot of staff. We have a turn boy. We have a conductor. We have inspectors. Quite many people. They are, of course, they have suffered like all the other Ugandans. Like all over the world, people are suffering. And of course, by the time you open up the roads and, you know, for these vehicles to hit the roads, it will be quite expensive. We have all these buses, we have loans that are outstanding in the banks. Much as they are talking of stopping areas, but these are commercial banks that are really doing business. They are telling you, approach them individually. Why individually? You can imagine. So, you know, we have a big problem. Our people have not even had, you know, food for some time. Most of these people, you know, that's a problem. We have all suffered, but we accept that we want to save lives. So it's very expensive on these buses because the moment a vehicle stops for some time, you know, by the time you start again, we are starting them every day. Yes, batteries, you know, they will be lost.
If the engine is
so
running.
it's quite a good amount of money. I don't think at the moment I can even calculate how much money is lost. But generally, I don't want to be selfish. But I would want, because we are providing a service that all over the world is subsidized by government. This would be the time for government to come in and help, because we are providing a service that they would have help done. You remember we used to have the government buses, UTC and the People's Transport. The government, you know, they invested it itself from there. We used to have Uganda Airlines, and the government has come back. We used to have railways, but later we had sold it. Now we have come back, which shows you that it is the bus industry where the government must come back and be a party, so that we can help these local investors who have invested very handsomely, but they are getting little from it.
Mr. Byanyima, we know even you, the operators, as well as your supervisor, when you go downtown, you go to Namaiba bus terminal, you go to Chisenyi bus terminal, you go to Bakuli, you see there's no organization in there. What should be done by you, the operators, who are at least the first people of contact between the passenger and you, the operators, as well as these people who are managing these facilities that attract a lot of people?
Of course, to reiterate what I have said, this transport sector is a very, very sensitive sector. You know how many people we serve in this country. We have even, several times we have called on government. Let us partner with them. Let them get land for us. And we have one terminal in Kampala. Outside Kampala a bit, it can be just a few kilometers. Like we have a place near Northern Bypass. Northern Bypass is a very good place that would serve all people, the Western axis, Eastern axis, Midwestern, Northern, everywhere. So let them provide a terminal, one terminal, where all these buses would, so that our people would have a one-stop center where he knows and he will be guided by well-educated people who can guide them to the bus park.
Thank you.
But you can still see, as we talk now, the KCCA with the taxi park, old taxi park. All of us know that it has been a very shabby thing. But to do it, why don't we inform these major stakeholders and get them involved?
In 1 minute, Mr. Nathan Byanyima, what would you tell the viewer who is on NTV, including the local person, including the authorities, and what should be done in this construction and transport sector as we look forward for a better
we
organized
are calling
city?
upon government, and especially procuring entities that procure most of these projects, that it is government money, even when it's a loan, we shall pay it. We would want to start emphasizing that we must engage the local communities. We must involve all the leaders at all levels so that the information that we have is shared. And this is not that we should forget about even criticizing them, criticizing UNRWA, show the work and show the work. No, for us as cost, we move and work with them. When there is a mistake, it is pointed out and it is solved. This name calling and shaming people, that one is no longer order of the day.
Thank you so much.
We want to be good partners of government so that at the end of the day, value for money and work is done. This business of criticizing people, we should get out of it.
Thank you so much. We hope this time round we shall see value for money, because this has been a song for too long. Value for money.
Yes, and we are there. We stand there. We shall
Okay.
we are very, very strong, organized, because we have government, we have civil society, we have most of the people like the private sector. We want to move in a system so that Uganda can be a better Uganda for us.
Thank you so much. He's
You're welcome.
Mr. Nathan Byanyima. He's the chairperson of COST. COST is Construction Sector Transparency Initiative, as well as he's also the chairperson of Uganda Bus Owners and Drivers Association. This is Stephen Imbido on FFSW Chibuga. Now I have to take you back to studio for now, because Romeo Busiko is there and he is right now.
Stephen Mbide, thank you very much for that information. I would like to bring in Ainebiona, Emmanuel Ainebiona. He's a spokesperson of the Ministry, from the Ministry of Health. He's going to be telling us how the Ministry of Health is actually prepared to combat the effects of COVID-19. A very good morning, Mr. Ainebiona. Welcome to Morning at NTV.
Now I have to take you back to studio for now, because
Ainebiona, how is the Ministry of Health prepared to combat the effects of COVID-19, my brother? I think there seems to be some audio issues with Mr. Ainebiona's line, but we are still establishing that line. We are still talking about the issue of floods. Of COVID-19, yes, my brother. Can you hear me, Mr. Ainebiona?
Yes, I can hear you, Romeo. Good morning.
Yes, we would like to know how the Ministry of Health is prepared to combat the effects of COVID-19. I think there seems to be some audio issues with Mr. Ainebiona's line, but we are still establishing that line. We are There seems to be a very, very slight delay in that connection, but I do have George Nsamba right here in studio, and I also have Ms. Wire Flavia, the Executive Director of National Building Review Board. I still have the spokesperson of the Ministry of Health, Mr. Emmanuel Ainebiona. We are still grappling with that connection, but I believe you can hear me now, Mr. Ainebiona. How is the Ministry of Health prepared to combat the effects of COVID-19?
Thank you very much. Good morning, Romeo.
Good morning.
As you are aware, the Ministry of Health is at the forefront of combating COVID-19. And that notwithstanding, the Ministry of Health is prepared to combat the effects of COVID-19 in all its projects, and also we are currently responding all forms, working with other government agencies. So the ministry is very prepared, I can say.
What are you doing to improve quality access to health infrastructure?
Somehow, because of the lockdown, a number of infrastructure in terms of construction projects had stopped But now that was a clearance that construction companies and also contractors can go back to their site. The Ministry of Health also has a plan to ensure that this work goes ahead, because there were a number of construction projects, like construction of health center threes across the country. There was the completion of the refurbishment of Murago National Referral Hospital that has been undergoing refurbishment. We have a project of the National Specialized Hospital at Ruboa, and also the pediatric emergency hospital in Ikube, that are expected to go on after there was a relaxation of the restriction on movement, where the head of state indicated that companies can go back to the site and have hardware places that provide infrastructure raw materials to open. So this means that our infrastructure department will be providing guidelines and also enabling our contractors that had been on various sites constructing health infrastructure to be able to go back to work.
Let's talk about emergency infrastructure projects that you have in the pipeline. How many are they and where will they be constructed?
Yes, we have a project where we will have about 150 ICU facilities installed across the country in regional referral hospital, and this is currently underway. We will have a number of ICU facilities in the 14 regional referral hospitals across the country, and all these are in preparations to mitigate any effects of COVID-19 in an event that we have, for instance, critical cases of COVID-19. So we are prepared for the worst scenario. But for the meantime, as you are aware, our community transmission to some level controlled, because we have not had any positive cases from the community. The current seeing truck drivers. So in terms of infrastructure, the infrastructure is being prepared countrywide.
And how much budget has been put aside for such infrastructure projects?
The budgetary allocation, I might not have the right figures now, but there is so much investment that is going into about like 50 billion for the infrastructure, these ICU facilities. But these other details I can best provide at a later time. We are also expecting a number of new ambulances that will beef up our current fleet, and also ensuring that we have satellite centers or control towers for these ambulances. All that comes under infrastructure.
Well, thank you very much, Ms. Emanuela Inovione, Ministry of Health, a spokesperson, for making time to speak to us.
Thank you for having me. Stay safe from COVID-19.
Indeed. I also do have that is Honorable Georgie Wilson Nsamba, the Vice Chairperson of Parliament, Physical Infrastructure Committee. I also do have the Executive Director, Engineer Flavia Bwire, the Executive Secretary of the National Building Review Board. I'm going to start with you, Ms. Honorable George Wilson Nsamba. Let's talk about the issue of floods. I'd like to talk about how efforts can improve infrastructure transparency to contribute towards an effective COVID-19 response. But then, before we talk about issues of improving infrastructure, let's talk about the factors that contribute to the decimation of infrastructure in the first place, the floods. Kasese has been pummeled by floods twice in the space of 7 years. Now, the first time Kasese was pummeled, we had Musa Echweru come out to say that the people in that area were going to be given some food, some kind of relief, so that they can get back onto their feet. There were plans to take those people to safer ground so that they can be helped in that regard. But then 6 days ago, when the Kasese was ravaged by the same floods, we had Mr. Musa Echweru come out to say that focus of government isn't going to be giving people reprieve or some food relief or giving them shelter, but the focus was on cholera, combating cholera outbreaks in Kasese. Do you think the government at this point in time has its priorities overturned?
Thank you very much for this opportunity in the first place. I think there's something that goes wrong in that direction. Because if the plan has been where to provide food, relief to a community, then you divert it to another activity. I think that's misfiring. Yeah, they should have actually gone according to plan. I don't know what made him change his mind to focus on cholera, which didn't feature so prominently in that intervention. So I think that was not proper, and much as he could have anticipated cholera, but he should have mentioned it in the planning in the first case.
Speaking of planning, is there a plan to help these people who are in the path of such devastating floods? Because it seems like there isn't any plan. 7 years ago, the same people have been ravaged. So if it happened the first time and the second time, what is stopping the floods from coming and ravaging the same people the third time if there's no plan?
Indeed, that takes us to a level of implementation. Implementation in the ministries is lacking. I don't know whether they are short of staff or the will to do it or the corruption involved. I don't know. But I think we are yet to find out what happens in that direction. Because as policymakers, we actually have all the policies, all the laws to actually combat all these interventions. And all the laws are clear. And the one thing we would have expected from ministries is maybe request for funds from Parliament, as they feel they should actually do proper work for us. But that may not be coming out outright. The funds may not be enough, yes, but let the little that goes in be seen doing some work. So I think there is a problem on implementation, which we urge our government officials to really come out and help this country.
Indeed. So how will the efforts to improve infrastructure transparency contribute to actually an effective response to COVID-19?
Yeah, COVID-19 indeed can be converted very well if the infrastructure is connecting.
But how?
Now there is an issue of floods coming in. Kasese, Galilaya, in my place, the whole parish was cut off. In Timba parish, in Kaongo, is all cut off. We're talking about 3,000, 5,000 people cut off. Remember, they were barred from fishing, and that's a fishing community. And they are there at home. Now the floods have cut them off. They have gone through across the roads.
Yes.
The Yunra road that used to connect to that area. I find it's a problem. Floods have come in at a time when we're actually fighting COVID-19, and they have also come in as a disaster. So there are challenges. There are challenges. So I would do, and many other places like you've seen Luzira, all these areas have been affected by the affected infrastructure. They affected roads. They're affecting roads. I mean, buildings are collapsing because of weak foundations or being weakened by the excessive water. So it is a problem we need to address these floods. Now, a case that we are particularly interested in is my constituency, you remember, in Galilaya. That's where I represent. People right now need food. They are not working. COVID has its own restrictions. People can't move. They are in-house. So those interventions are very urgent and are very grave. They need urgent attention.
How has such a dire situation contributed towards the impediment of some of the measures that we've put in place to contain the spread of COVID-19? I mean, you have floods forcing people out of their homes, which is a recommendation. We are telling people to stay in their homes. So if floods pummel their houses and people are actually running amok into the community, how has that actually impeded the efforts of government to control the spread of COVID-19?
In fact, it is impeding a lot because now people don't know what to do. Because here are floods that have cut them off and they've actually affected their homes, they affected their livelihood, and they are supposed to be, they are actually getting displaced. And the displacement, I find people actually have no choice. They will not comply to the rules as or the guidelines that may be, but indeed try to save life, run to another area. Some people are now in camps again, in camps in some dry areas of safe zones, and it's difficult to really want to comply to washing hands, to doing this. It's a bit of a problem. So we need a bigger intervention in that direction. So that
what kind of intervention?
Intervention means government has got to intensify its efforts, especially towards in those flooded areas, like Asese, like now Galilaya and Amuria, the other side. Then you find here, government has got to intensify the COVID monitoring and intervention, regulations, enforcement, because somebody who has nowhere to stay, he has no food. Yeah? Confining him is so difficult. When his property has gone, he has no food, he has nowhere to stay. He must look for a safer place. So he's forced to look for a safer place. So government has to double their efforts, and even the COVID interventions must tighten their interventions. But the problem is, in most of our districts, these COVID, the district task forces are few, and they operate from the district. These people are very down in these villages. By the time somebody leaves the district to go to the villages in the Galilaya, those people already are in their own setting. They have set their own selves. So it is a difficult situation that requires more effort by the COVID task forces.
Indeed. Wise words from the Vice Chairperson of the Parliament Physical Infrastructure Committee, Honorable George Nsamba. I also do have the Executive Secretary of the National Building Review Board, Engineer Flavia Bwire. Let's talk about the issue of collapsing buildings. Why does this keep happening?
Thank you so much, and good morning, viewers. I want to start by saying when a building collapses, it is a symptom of so many other things. So for the recent happenings, we commissioned teams to do investigations. But maybe to put everything into perspective, let's start from how has National Building Review Board come to be?
We'll get to that. We'll get to that shortly, Mrs. Bwire. Let's take a very short break. You're still watching Morning at NTV. We'll be right back with more information. Keep it here.
You're watching Morning at NTV.
Welcome back to Morning at NTV, and thank you for staying with us. We have an opinion poll question on our social media pages, Facebook and Twitter. How best can we avert cases of collapsing buildings in Kampala? I'll sample maybe three of your responses right here. Basembeda Frederick is saying, if one undertook a study on most of the accidents of this nature, the developers are connected people who deliberately ignore guidance with impunity, and in most cases, investing illicit wealth. You also have Anthony saying thoroughly regulate the construction contractors. It seems like the sector has been invaded by lots of fake and inexperienced and qualified engineers. Then tackle the regulators such as KCCA and the professional bodies like architects and engineers unions or associations. Thirdly, the government, this is from Herbert, the government of Uganda should enforce KCCA to all construction companies, must have health and safety on sites and implement safety courses in the country like NEBOSH, National Examinations Board of Occupation Health and Safety. Well, they're talking about regulation and policies, but all this is around. The National Building Review Board, all these are around. So Mrs. Bwire is going to be telling us why these buildings continue to collapse, despite the fact that we have the policies, we have the laws. If you're found constructing a building without a blueprint, you can be taken away for 12 years. But why do people continue to risk it? Is it because of corruption, like the president says, and Mr. Katumba? Well, we'll know from Mrs. Bwire, the Executive Secretary of the National Building Review Board. Help us understand, by the way, why do these buildings keep on collapsing, despite the interventions since 2018, at least?
Okay, thank you so much. As you've rightly put it, we came into being in 2018. The governing board of the National Building Review Board was inaugurated in October 2018. In April 2019, the Secretariat was established. The National Building Review Board Secretariat is in charge of the day-to-day operations of the board. That is the Secretariat that I lead. And since coming into being in April, we've done quite some work. As you've rightly mentioned, this building sector has a lot of stakeholders. We have contractors, we have regulatory bodies that are regulating the professionals, we have developers, we have the general public as well. So what have we done in this time was to bring these people together to understand the problem. Unfortunately, we've come in at a time when the problem is too big that our effort is scattered. We are investigating accidents as well as doing strategic thinking to know how do we better this particular environment. That is what has taken some of our time. And the findings, of course, in the field right now, from the investigations we've had, we've paid a lot of attention to the blueprints, as you call them, to the approval process. So everybody has bothered to comply on paper. The document, the plan meets the requirements and has a stamp approved. But then the real business happens on site. What then is going on site? Is this particular drawing being put down on ground? In most cases, in all the accidents we've investigated, there is not a single one that has followed the blueprint, as you call it.
It's never synonymous.
Never. Wow. None of them. So what does this mean? It means we need to focus attention on what is happening on site. And what have we decided to do in order to focus attention here? We are bringing all these professionals that are supposed to be on site, all their regulatory bodies. We are making them partners in ensuring that this site is well managed. So, of course, we've visited certain local authorities where you talk to the district engineer or the CAO, and he's not able, he does not have a list of the registered professionals that should be allowed to operate, for example, in that area. And what are we telling the regulatory bodies? Give us this information and we disseminate it. So going forward, with all these accidents happening, what should we do? As you quote the president, corruption and all that is affecting the building sector. And in our strategic thinking, we have broken corruption into different categories. We have corruption at the local authorities. We have corruption at the professional bodies themselves. We have corruption with the developers. And at the board, we are also focusing our effort to ensure that we do away with anything that is close to corruption.
How are you planning to weed out corruption in the professional bodies, at least the professional ones? Because I'm thinking if I have a blueprint of a building and it's not being reflected in the main building, it means I paid off someone to keep the truth hush. So that means there is corruption in the professional bodies. What are you doing to weed it out?
Now, the law itself, in coming into existence, I think the brains behind the law, of course, knew that this is a problem. So from history, we know that approvals and all this has been done in the local authorities without any other institution to do the monitoring, to do the compliance audits, to ensure that these people are doing the right job. And when government realized that, the Building Control Act came into being, and the National Building Review Board given this mandate to specifically ensure that these people are doing their job. So how do we want to do it? First of all, we want to automate the entire building control system. That you want to apply for any permit, you want approvals and so on, do it online. Do it online, and when you do it online, we are working with the NITAU to develop this particular application. that we are deploying countrywide. So irrespective of where you are, apply online. At NBRB, we shall know that you have applied. Now, the law says from the time you apply until you get your response, a maximum of 30 days. So the system will be counting these 30 days. When are you getting your response? After that, the regulations are saying, when you get your permit, the building committee should impose terms and conditions. You need an architect to supervise, and the architect is already mentioned. This is who it is. All the details of these architects, all the registered architects as I speak, the Architects Registration Board has given us all their details, and they are already integrated into the system. The engineers have done the same. The surveyors have done the same. So we have them integrated. So from the system, you will know Flavia is supposed to do this particular project. And at NBRB, our role will now be, we are monitoring what Flavia is doing on that particular project. Secondly, we are imposing requirements for these professionals now to present reports to the local authorities. One of the things we have realized is that the local authorities do not have the capacity to supervise, to monitor all these buildings. So the law says the developer is responsible for ensuring that he has the right people on site. So if you have the right architect, you have the right engineer, should I have an inspector on your back every day? No. I would expect the engineer, the architect to furnish reports to the inspector. Now, in furnishing these reports, they are furnished online as well. Now, from NBRB, we will see that you have furnished a report that the building committee or the building control officer has asked for. Now, the building control officer will be left with an oversight role. If this particular report has not come in, why hasn't it come in? Who is the architect? We now enforce. Get us this report. Why isn't it coming in? Secondly, they will have to do impromptu checks. This man has given you all this very nice reporting, but is it what is on ground? So the law gives the building control officer a right of entry into any construction site, into any building. Now, the law is also taking this beyond just new buildings, including your house that you've occupied. The building control officer can come and inspect and tell you that it is in a state of disrepair. You need to vacate and have it repaired. Now, after all this, we are also providing platforms for whistleblowing. So we want to work with the local authorities to give us information. When you see a building coming up, there are already requirements we need on a signboard, mentioning the permit number, who is supposed to be there, and so on. If you do not see that signpost, give us a call. So we are going to set up these, we are setting up these toll-free lines. Right now, works are ongoing to set up these toll-free lines. And a few people have actually been reaching out to us. That's why I said we have scattered effort, because ever since we came into being, we are responding to whistleblowers all the time. A few people that know about our existence have actually kept us busy. There is this building about to come down, you run. There is this, so in the last few months, we have actually averted some accidents that should have happened, not only around Kampala, but even outside Kampala. Yes.
Okay, that's Engineer Flavia Bwire, the Executive Secretary of the National Building Review Board, with some wise words. Let's take a very short break. We'll be right back with more information.
You're watching Morning at NTV.
Welcome back to Morning at NTV. There is an opinion poll question on our Facebook and Twitter pages. What do you think should be done to avert the cases of buildings collapsing? I will sample some other three messages right here from some of our Facebook people. Medville is saying the building materials like the iron bars have are not strong enough. Mostly here in Uganda, companies reprocess the iron bars, which is called mitaimbo, from wasted metal scrap, which in most cases had reduced steel in it. Therefore, UNBS should even investigate that case too. Deus Nuamanya is saying the government should license commendable building companies and exclude those unworthy. Tom Barry says until you hold officials accountable for their actions, including the building company, nothing changes. Without serious consequences for manslaughter, life and danger will continue as normal. Everybody gets off, no issues. Finally, Kinji is saying nothing at all. Therefore, he's saying, Tunamsku is saying, stop illegal construction of buildings and use proper licensed companies. And finally, Basembere is saying, those are some of them. If the government is a mess, everything would be the same until we wake up and change the government. All will be solved. Those are some of the views coming in on our Facebook pages, but I do have the experts, so they will be answering in that regard. I also have Honorable George Nsamba Kumama. Yes, let's talk about what you, as the Vice Chairperson or MPs on the Parliament's Physical Infrastructure Committee, what are you doing to help arrest this situation?
Thank you very much, and good morning, viewers. I also want to say this. We have deep concerns of what's going on in the country, especially in the building sector. And recently, as Parliament, we passed a budget to the National Building Review Board that we feel can make them actually operationalize their activities. And I think that budget is yet to be effective in July. But of now, the shortfall, there's a problem, like she has articulated here, that she has run short of staff. She's basically alone with a few volunteers that are helping her run the sector, which is very dangerous to us as Uganda. And without that board operationalized fully, I think we shall have a problem. Because that board is supposed to oversee the entire activities in the building sector all over the country. And we'll even see local authorities, moderate them, advise them, and guide them as far as buildings are concerned. So as Parliament, I think we have done that, and I think hopefully next year, starting July, we shall have to live to see its fruits. Secondly, as a committee, we are planning to go and also visit the sites, because it's a good thing that we look at those areas so that we develop our own policies. Because I was asking Flavia here, is the problem the policy, is it the problem in the law? She said no, the problem is actually implementation, and we concurred on that.
The ideas are there.
Yes, we concurred on that. Problem is implementation. What is the short of implementation? Staff are not enough, and maybe the funding is not enough, which we have tried to address as a committee. And I think for now, the immediate intervention is how do we assist the situation now? Local governments must actually assert themselves into this. The corruption aspect that has come up is also there, yes. But I think corruption at times comes when there are scarce services. At times people want to force out certain things. Scarce services which are in the local governments force some of these fellows to think, I think somebody needs money to make sure he works on me. Maybe if I give money, I'll be priority number one. That's where things are coming in. But if there are enough staff to address this, I think that corruption can also be addressed. It can also be addressed. So I also would do, as a committee, we are moving also out to the flood areas that are along the buildings, flood areas where these roads, most of our roads, usual roads, have been broken down. Bridges have been washed away, you see. So as a committee, we tend to go there. What is the workmanship? Is it the shoulder work? What is it? Like we note in the building area, our engineers are educated engineers. These are very principally educated engineers. And we have companies that are registered to work on this. A building mushrooming, and you're an engineer that made that building plan, or an architect, for so to say, engineer that's building, and you know the building regulations, you know the building rules governing your activities. You should be able to actually, like the engineer Flavia is saying, should be able to report or actually articulate, assert yourself as as an engineer expert who is given to work on that job, on that house. You should know, should be following it every other step, following your other people who are building. So I think there is also a problem there.
But let's talk about...
And most of the building, most of these building plans are approved, as she
yes,
says.
yes.
All of them are approved properly, very wonderful plans. Started everybody, physical planner, urban management, all these approving professions have asserted themselves and appended their signatures on it. But the problem is implementation. And even the engineers and the architects who make these plans, I think one would be really very keen to interest himself or herself to see that the building plan that I made, how is it standing on it?
Yes.
At one moment, as an architect, one should be able to go there and say, remember, I made this plan. Should you have record of this? Can I make a visit?
Yes.
Is it as I planned? Secondly, the builder, the engineer who builds, is an expert. Is a professional. Because most of these young fellows whom we see on the sites work under some professional bodies. Not they themselves. They report to some professional engineer who should be able to actually assist us
and give them the information.
Monitor these buildings.
So, that's where the government comes in.
That's where, yeah.
What role is the government playing, by the way, to improve access to quality infrastructure and information on infrastructure?
Yeah, that's the beginning of the information. Government now has come in as a monitor of the entire thing, overseer. But these people are detailed work. They are professional. They even pay taxes to government. You know, they are bodies that are registered, wonderfully registered engineers. But they fall short of one thing: inspection and commitment to an activity, to a building. They're actually building. That's where the gap is, because you can't build a building to 4th floor. And you call yourself an engineer who is building that house. When you know from 1st, 2nd, 3rd, your mixtures are not good, your materials are not well tested, you, an engineer, should have that insight. My materials are good. What's the source of my materials? What's the source of my sand, my gravel, all these?
It seems like they don't bother
because
they're looking for something cheap.
That is where the problem is. So government must assert themselves on on this, and actually punitive action should be taken.
Engineer Flavia, how are you supporting town planners and contractors to deliver at least better infrastructure during this current situation?
Okay. Town planners
and contractors, yes.
I hope you mean the fiscal planners, yes. By the Fiscal Planning Act, they are in charge of land use planning. And as a requirement for any building to be considered, we need clearance from the Fiscal Planning Committee, showing that this particular development has been okayed in that area. You're not bringing a church in a residential area. You're not bringing a shrine in a hospital, for a hospital area, for example. So how are we supporting them? We are trying to ensure that whoever is developing a building in a particular area has a clearance from the planning authority. Now, I wanted to simply throw more light on what Honorable said here, that first, as I said, we want to coordinate the effort of all stakeholders in the built environment. That is, I think, the only way we are going to deliver quality infrastructure. Coordinate the effort of the professional bodies, the contractors, the local authorities, the developers themselves.
So it should be a concerted effort,
yes,
not a scattered one.
It shouldn't be a scattered effort.
Amazing.
Yes. Now, what does the law say today? The developer is very key. And whoever is thinking about development out there, know you have a very big mandate. Immediately you start to develop anything called a building, refer to the Building Control Act and ensure you adhere to the requirements there. We've had professionals in the recent past telling us, you see, for me, I did what? I did only sign and stamp the drawings, but I was not hired to do the supervision. The regulations today, the building control regulations of 2020, say that for as long as you are going to stamp those things, we are going to confirm with you that you know about this plan that has been submitted. When you confirm, by default, you are the supervisor until such a time that we get something different, until you are going to write to the authority, to the local authority, to say, I am not the supervisor there, or the developer writes and says, I am not the supervisor there. Now, if by default in the building permit, you are written as the supervisor, you have a duty of care to ensure you're following up with that building. You did this design, it was approved, you are named as the supervisor, you should follow it up. If you're not a supervisor, let us know. We are not going to entertain this of I stamped, I signed, yes, but I don't know what happened next. No. The law now says you should know.
You should know.
You should know what is happening next. So the professionals should be aware of that. Don't just get something and stamp because they are going to pay you some money for that day. And finally, finally, because we are automating the system, we'll be able to know which engineer is doing 3,000 projects as a single person. You don't have anybody you employ, but on the system online, we can tell that Flavia has 500 projects. How then, you'll need to demonstrate to us how you are able to effectively deliver on all those 500.
Amazing. Honorable Nsamba Kumama, the issue of buildings collapsing isn't because of shoddy work only. There's also the issue of floods. Yes.
Yes, please.
If floods move to wash away a village, they will actually weaken the foundation of the building, hence causing the collapse. So besides shoddy work, we also have the issue of floods. So how are we saving lives, protecting lives, people who are in the path of these floods? What are we doing as government to put them to safer ground so that they can be protected? Are there any early warning alert systems that are in place to tell people, yes, there's a flood that is on the way, please move away from the path of danger? What is government doing in that regard?
Yeah, thank you very much for this. I must say this, that I think government has got a challenge now as far as floods are concerned. We have been having floods ever before, but I think they are not as grave as these ones this year. This year has been too much.
You can focus on what is happening in Bali.
Yeah, I like indeed, like you said, what is happening in Galilea and in Bali. In Bali, where a whole parish is cut off, and it's surrounded by water. Surrounded by water, and buildings were built actually as close to water as 10, 20 meters. They are buildings. Now, those buildings that actually are very close to water, and with these floods, you really see that there is a problem. There's a problem. So government, I think, needs to devise a way of actually get either a meter gauge beyond which they will be gauging themselves that beyond this level there is bound to have a flood, and that sets an alert, like you say. So government needs to actually move into that direction.
Get the alert system on the area catchments and the river.
Yeah, especially. And also, as they develop that, they also need to have not to allow people to really build as close to the water.
To the area catchments.
There must be implementation. You know, people are buying our villages, like in our villages. When you are selling land, say, I can buy a bit of the hard. I also need the swamp. I also need down there
The water.
the water. And eventually they become, one person becomes 10 people. Fragmentation comes, one of your sons goes to build near the water.
It seems like we are running out of time, Mr. Nsamba Kumama, but let's talk about the lessons we've learned. Once at 1 minute and 1 minute for Ms. Flavia. We've run out of time.
Yeah, I think the lessons that actually these floods have taught us, and the collapse of these buildings, is that government needs to pull up the socks to intensify the inspection, the inspectorate of all these buildings. Secondly, the engineers, architects that actually make these plans and build these houses must be taken taken on full board.
Okay,
They must take
thank you
charge.
very much.
So that's
Ms.
very
Bide, your 2 cents.
Okay, thank you. The lessons we've learned actually is that the amount of effort we concentrated on compliance with the requirements for approval should be the same effort we concentrate on ensuring the right work is done on site.
Thank you very much, Engineer Bwire. Well, if you're living near an area catchment, it's best you shift to some other place because these area catchments have dried up and they're not soaking up that rain. So if it pummels that area catchment, the water is just going to actually flow to the river, cause flooding, and people's lives will be lost. So the issue of area catchments and shoddy work, yes, has led to buildings collapsing, people losing their lives, and so forth. We have come to an end of this edition of Morning at NTV. My name is Romeo Busiku. Let me sample 3 of your messages of people who are celebrating their birthdays today. To Semereira Eva, happy birthday to Baby Taj, aka Julians. Millie Nancha says, happiest birthday to Baby Taj. You have put a new song in our mouths. And finally, I have Alinda Isaac who says, happy birthday to my sister Alinda Docus and to everyone who is celebrating their birthday on the 14th of May, the year 2020. We do wish you a joyous celebration. My name is Romeo Busiku. Let's interface at 1 p.m. for more information. Have yourselves a blessed morning.